And good evening, this is Bob W6CJX, and I'll be your net control operator for tonight's Papa Great Outdoor Net. This net meets every Sunday evening at 8 p.m. Pacific. This is a directed net, so please go through net control at all times, and your cooperation is always greatly appreciated. Stations with emergency or priority traffic can come into the net at any time with a double break, and net control will respond appropriately. The Papa system is an open membership-supported system in the Southern California area with coverage from the Mexican border to Paso Robles and from the Channel Islands to Las Vegas, Nevada. If you're a visitor to the Papa system tonight, I invite you to go to papasys.com, that's PAPASYS.com, and register as a guest. With your guest registration, you'll have 45 days of free access to the Papa system. At the end of your one-time 45-day guest access period, we'd love for you to become a subscribed member, continue to use the Papa system on a daily basis, and be part of the Papa system family. However, all amateurs are welcome to participate in the daily, weekly, and monthly Papa system nets regardless of their membership status. Again, this is the Papa system Great Outdoor Net. Well, good evening. This is Bob W6CJX, and I am net control for the Papa system Great Outdoor Net. Happy Easter to everyone that celebrates and believes and all that kind of good stuff. So we had a good, nice luncheon. It was kind of a brunch, I guess, with our daughter and son-in-law, and I felt like we were at Disneyland. She really did it up nice. It was really nice. So we enjoyed that. Some really great goodies, and so I guess it's pays back after a while. Kids that come through. Anyway, let's see what else we got tonight. Let's do some announcements. We'll get those out of the way. We've got a couple of breakfasts coming up next weekend, and also the Midway, I believe. So stand by.
Here is the Papa System weekly calendar for the latest news and upcoming events. Coming up next weekend, the Papa Inland Empire Breakfast. Papa will be meeting on Saturday, April 11th at 9 a.m. We will be offering ham license testing at 8 a.m. for technician, general and amateur extra class licenses. Please RSVP for the breakfast at 9 a.m. and for ham license testing at 8 a.m. Also on the same day, the Papa Valley Breakfast. Papa will also be meeting on Saturday, April 11th at 7:30 a.m. at Lulu's Restaurant in Van Nuys, California. We will be offering ham license testing at 7 a.m. for technician, general and amateur extra class licenses. Please RSVP for breakfast attendance at 7:30 a.m. and for ham license testing at 7 a.m. As always, the Papa Quick Start program runs in conjunction with all our test sessions and is a benefit for newly licensed technician class ham radio operators. Please see the Papa website for more information. You are encouraged to check in on the Papa System Wednesday night, New Hams Net with Steve, KI6LOV, at 7 p.m., and let him know that you were part of the Quick Start program. The USS Midway Museum radio team, NI6IW, will also be on the air on Saturday, April 11th from 0900 to 1600 Pacific Time. They will be remembering Operation Frequent Wind on April 29, 1975. Check the Papa website for all of the different modes and operating frequencies. On Sunday mornings we have the Papa Simplex Net at 7 a.m. with your host, Evo K06BKX. This is a great place to see how well you can reach other stations in your area without using a repeater. See the Papa website for more information. All this information, and a whole lot more, can be found on the Papa website at papasys.com.
All right, we've got the two breakfasts. That's a big, we always kick off the month in style here in the Papa system because we have two breakfasts usually, or sometimes a breakfast and a lunch, but I think pretty much it's two breakfasts, and we are have the Midway, so that's all a lot of fun. So good stuff coming up next weekend if you have nothing to do. I think it's supposed to rain, but we'll see about that. Let's see if there's any other announcements before we continue. Any announcements at all for the net? Please come now. Okay, hearing nothing, we'll continue with the net. And we didn't have any emergency traffic either, so I think we're all good. Let's see. I think we're going to go to Steve. I mean, I'm not going to give away any really good news. I'm going to let him be the bearer of good news, and I think it will be very interesting. So it's kind of all led up to this. So let me see if Steve, KI6LOV, and has his mic ready. And I believe he's fresh off the trail again today. So he's got it all together, this man. Take it away, Steve. Thank you.
I just keyed up on the wrong repeater. Well, good evening, everyone out here on the great outdoor net, Bob. And I don't know if I have it all together, but I pick up pieces of it along the way. And I am indeed fresh off the trail. And I have some trail stories, but I think we're going to at least save one of those for another time, because the big news is the Big Bear bald eagles, Jackie and Shadow, their eggs both hatched this weekend. And both of the eaglets look good. Now, when you go to the bald eagle cam, webcam, and you see the nest there, every time Jackie or Shadow, depending on who's sitting on the chicks now, once they get up, they'll zoom in and show you a close-up. And now you might notice that one of the chicks seems a little more aggressive and the other one's a little tired. Well, I'll tell you, at this early age, just a few hours makes a big difference. And I'm no ornithologist, but I've watched many years of Jackie and Shadow, and it's pretty much all the same. Normally, the number 2 chick will catch up, and that'll be a good thing. Just a few minutes ago, I was watching Jackie sitting on the nest, and all of a sudden, she just did a big wing slap. If you've never seen that, that's kind of a sight to behold, and normally it's because one of those nocturnal little rodents that try to come up to the nest, they are not welcome when Jackie is around. And one last thing about the Jackie and Shadow and some of their history. It seems that every year, no matter when the eggs hatch for Jackie there's a rain and snowstorm predicted. So coming up next weekend, we'll see how it goes. And if you've never gone back or you haven't followed them over the years, if you go back a couple of seasons, you'll see times when Jackie is sitting on the nest all night, completely covered in snow. And that's how dedicated the eagles are to keeping their young ones safe. So, Bob, I'll give it back to you, and then I have one short story from the trail. I'll save another one perhaps for next week. KI6LOV.
Well, thank you, Steve. Well, thank you, Steve. I like to say that. Yeah, you know what? I figured I had an epiphany. Is that something, or is that like a fruit? I'm not sure. But I think I had a epiphany. That's the only thing I could say. Is that I should have done the bald eagle net this week. But you know what?
Missed it by that much.
I did. I missed it by that much. Oh my gosh. Okay. So much for scheduling. I'm going to fire my production scheduler, whoever that is. It's probably me. Okay. Do you want to take it back, Steve? W6CJX, back to KI6LOV.
All right, Bob. Well, I spoke with Bob on the radio yesterday when I was hiking into the cabin, and I mentioned that I'm still seeing a lot of those little western fence lizards, commonly known as well as blue-bellied lizards, and they are known as Sceloporus occidentalis for all you taxonomy freaks out there. And I see them in the same places along the trail. I see the same one every time in the same place, in many different locations. I started trying to give them names, and I realized there were too many to count, so I just called them all Bob. So there you are, Bob, in your honor. This is KI6LOV. Back to you.
Well, I've been reduced to a lizard on a trail, or several lizards on. Now, we discussed that, and I said, yeah, that way you don't have to remember who's who. You just name them all Bob, and you don't even have to forget how to spell it. It's the same way frontwards or back, so it works out quite well. We have Logan to thank for messing my whole life up. I'm still in therapy for this. I've always called them bluebellies since I was a little kid, and to me, they're bluebellies, but no. Logan had to come in and say they're a western fence lizard, and I just lost it. So that was a long time ago. And Logan knows that I'm only teasing because he does stuff like that too. But I'm getting better with the right medication and therapy. I'm doing all right. W6CJX for the Papa System, Great Outdoor Net. Thank you, Steve, for being here every week. I can't believe I'm here every week, but then I'm really glad that you are, and brings that little extra dirty dust to the trail up here to the Outdoor Net. Let's see. Well, let's go on to, we'll talk about our topic, I guess. We're going to be doing, I had a request for first-time camping. I know we're going to be talking to a bunch of choirs out there tonight because I think everyone's been camping at least once or twice. I guess what we would do for what we want to do is let's pretend there's somebody out there tonight. There's somebody out there tonight that has never been camping, but wants to go, has no idea what to do. So if we have any good advice to give them, that would be perfect. And other than that, if you'd just like to answer, if you can remember your last, or your first, not your last, but your first camping. I can't even remember my last camping trip, let alone my first one. But if you can remember your first camping trip, whether how old you were and where it was, I'm trying to narrow mine down, and I came up with something, but I don't know if it's really true or not, and you guys can't really tell if it was or not. So I could just be making the whole thing up. Okay, let's see who's out there tonight. We'll take some check-ins, see if anybody out there. Oh, wait, not yet. Stand back. We have to do our PRC, the Papa Research Center.
Good evening to everyone on the Papa System, Great Outdoor Net. This is Derek. I will be your Papa System AI research host for this evening. So, you want to go camping? Going on your first camping trip is exciting, but a little bit of preparation goes a long way in making sure you actually enjoy it. Stepping into the world of camping is a fantastic move. Whether you're heading to a local state park or a more remote spot, the goal is to make sure your first night under the stars is memorable for the right reasons, not because you're shivering or struggling with the tent poles. Here is a guide to help you transition from indoor human to happy camper. Before you leave, preparation is 90% of the battle. If you wait until you're at the campsite to open your gear, you're asking for a headache. The dry run. Pitch your tent in your backyard or a local park first. Ensure all the stakes are there and you actually know how the rain fly clips on. Check the real forecast. Don't just look at the high-low temps. Inventory your lighting. You need more than just your phone flashlight. Choosing and setting up your first campsite. Where you put your tent determines how well you sleep. Arrive early. Aim to reach your campsite at least 2 to 3 hours before sunset. The lookup rule. Before pitching, look up for widowmakers, dead branches, or leaning trees that could fall in a gust of wind. Mind the slope. Even a tiny incline can make you slide off your sleeping pad all night. Kitchen and food safety. The easiest way to ruin a trip is a hangry meltdown or an unwanted visit from a critter. Keep meals simple. Your first trip isn't the time for a 5-course meal. Wildlife protocol. Never ever keep food, including toothpaste, deodorant, or trash, inside your tent. Store it in a locked vehicle or a bear-proof canister if available. Pro tips for comfort. Layer up. Cotton is your enemy because it stays wet and gets cold. Stick to wool or synthetic moisture-wicking layers. The sleeping pad matters. Most people think the sleeping bag does all the work, but the pad is what insulates you from the cold ground. Don't skip it. Bring entertainment. There is a lot of downtime in camping. Bring a physical book, a deck of cards, or a journal to try to stay off your phone. Safety and communication. Amateur radio. Since you're active with the Papa system, bring your handheld. It's a great way to stay in touch if you're in an area with poor cell service. And there's almost always someone on the Papa repeaters in Southern California. Well, there you go, Bob. A few tips for your first camping trip. Have a great net tonight. This has been Derek with the Papa System Great Outdoor AI Research Center. And now back to W6CJX Net Control.
All right, thank you, Derek. I almost let it go by there. I know that was quite long, so I apologize. Some good points in there, though, if you think about it. And yeah, have you ever been on that little slope somewhere where you pitched your tent and next thing you know, you're sliding off of your sleeping pad or mattress or rolling to that direction? It's kind of hard to get up in the middle of the night and repitch your tent. So that's a pretty big step right there. Definitely for someone might be new. And another great resource, I wouldn't probably run off to REI and say, load me up unless you're loaded with money. But, like Big Five, you get a $24 tent for like 7 people. It may not be the best, but they're not bad. I got to admit, they're not bad for that money. And, get a lantern and get a stove and buy all that stuff. And hopefully you'll keep doing it after that very first trip. Sometimes when we're camping, I go over to the trash dumpsters. Usually we come in on a Sunday, so that everyone's kind of done their thing and they're out of there. And I'll see so many tents and poles snapped in half, just thrown in there because they're like, okay, this is not for me. And they just threw the whole thing away. So I usually scavenge what I can for extra repairs and things like that. All right, let's see who's out there tonight. This is W6CJX for the Papa System Great Outdoor Net, Sunday evenings here at 8 p.m. And let's see if we have anyone out there that would like to say hello tonight. Happy Easter to all again.
Kilo 6, Hotel November Golf.
Whiskey 6, Sierra Juliet Mike.
Alpha Bravo 6,
Kilo 6,
Bravo.
Papa Foxtrot November.
November 6, Hotel Alpha Lima.
Kilo Oscar 6, Mike Romeo X-Ray.
Kilo Echo 6, Mike Alpha Echo on Echolink.
Kilo Delta 6, Lima Bravo.
Kilo Foxtrot 4, Foxtrot Golf Hotel Rock.
Kilo 6, Delta Victor Ellen.
November 6,
Kilo
Papa
6, Lima Quebec Juliet Jeff.
Well, I'll get the buttons right here. One's the mute button, one's the push to talk. The November 6th call that came in, can you please come back?
That was November 6th, Papa.
Thank you, Chris. Yeah, I kind of thought I recognized your voice a little bit there and thought maybe it might be, but it doesn't hurt to ask. Okay, I think we got everybody. Let's start at the top and say hello to Adrian. KK6H&G, do you remember...
November Charlie Lima.
Something Lima. Come back with your call.
Kilo Oscar 6, November Charlie Lima.
November Charlie Lima. That makes sense. KO6 got you in the log. Very good. Let's go to Adrian, KK6H&G. Welcome. Do you remember, if you have any tips for brand new campers who've never been camping before, something quick and, it's one tip that works well. And do you remember your very first camping trip? Was it when you were younger? Was it when you got to the United States? Or you tell us. Please come down.
Hey, good evening, Bob, and everybody on the net. This is Adrian, KK6HNG, and thank you for doing the net. So let's see. For first-time campers, the major thing, which is the same advice you give for pretty much everything else, watch a lot of YouTubes. That will give you a lot of knowledge, and you'll figure out how to filter through junk as well. The other thing, start with a not necessarily very expensive but self-standing tent, because that's more forgiving in terms of where you will set it up, and if you are not that expert in setting it up. And the rest, as I said, it's inside the YouTube. Now, as for me, my first camping trip. So, I think it started when I was a child, and actually we decided, my parents with me and my brother to go and camp on the beach. Well, actually, it was a specially designated part of the beach. It was sort of a camping on the Black Sea coast. So basically, what we were doing, we were getting there, but we didn't have a tent. So that was a problem. Well, there were not a lot of decent available tents then. But our other friends from socialist country came to help. There was a lot of Poles and Czechs who were doing that scheme. They're having a vacation on the sea, on the beach, or in the campground. And then just when they were leaving, they were selling their tents. So they could get their money back because the Polish and Czech tents were actually pretty good. So we ended up with a standalone, 2-bedroom, reasonable big tent. Yeah, it was a car tent, of course, because that was the intention. But I remember that was my first experience camping. I may have been, I don't know, maybe 10 years or so. I don't know. So back to net, KK6HNG.
Well, thank you, Adrian. Yeah, that's a good memory. Definitely, I think a lot of us got started when we were young, whether it be in scouts or just our parents. I did a lot of camping with my parents, but the initial camping I can't remember other than Boy Scouts, and I think I mentioned it one time. We went to Lake Havasu and we got there really late. I mean, it was one of those like Friday after school, after work, the parents and the kids, and get there and it was dark, and so it must have been kind of wintertime maybe or something. And either way, it was cold, and I just remember getting down into that sleeping bag and learning to just like breathe inside the sleeping bag so that my warm air, take a deep breath outside once in a while so I don't, pass out or something. Thank you, Adrian, so much. And let's say hello to Sam, fresh back from the, let him tell you. He told me the other day, down south, South America, Whiskey 6, Sierra Juliet Mike. Welcome, Sam.
Good evening, Bob. This is Whiskey 6, Sierra Juliet Mike, Sam, and I'm back at my QTH in San Diego off of Papa 15. Yeah, I just got back on Thursday, and my wife and I and another friend from Peru, we were on the north coast of Colombia. No camping this time. Last year we did a lot of platforms and mosquito nets. This time was slightly more comfortable, but we were looking for endemic species of birds in the north coast Guajira Peninsula of Colombia. I did update my QRC page with a link in there to a site I'm just starting to create with my latest travel photos. And so if you go to my QRZ page, you'll see that at the very top of my page, there is a link now to the very few photos that I've done. That's only for the first couple of days of the trip, and mostly endemics. And if you guys are keen-eyed on that one, you'll recognize what looks like a northern cardinal, but it's not. It's actually endemic species to that area called the Guajira cardinal. And you'll tell because of the crest being significantly longer than our northern cardinal over here. But it was a great trip. Enjoyed it. Glad to be back. San Diego was always great to be back. Back to you, Bob.
Well, thank you, Sam. I don't know if those that are on the net tonight remember Sam. We did a nice little interview for him. He's a great wildlife photographer. He won't tell you that, but we can. And we named it in the archive, if you want to go back, Wildlife Sam. It shows him in one of the little boats that they took him around in the Amazon. And that was cool. And I got to talk to him while he was there through Starlink. One of the tribes actually had a Starlink set up there, and he was able to get in. And I forgot if it was on Echolink or something. Or maybe he was using a bridge. But I did get to talk to him. That's what gave me the idea to get him on the net. I said, oh, my gosh, I have to get this guy. So thank you, Sam, so much. Glad you had a wonderful trip and safe and made it back here safe. And would look forward to talking to you soon on the radio. Always do. Let's say hello to Jeff AB6MB. Mr. Jeff, Antenna Man from Friday night. What's going on, Jeff? Welcome.
Hello, Bob, and thank you very much for doing that. Good subject. I was in high school, or even younger than that, when I did my first camping, but it was pretty much car camping. But I've done backpacking over the years, and switched to car camping, which I find it, in your 40s is a lot easier. The one thing, a bit of advice I'll give is, my girlfriend learned this at the time, don't plan big meals when you're camping with lots of different dishes, because all you're going to end up doing is cooking the whole time. And she did that, and she said, never again. And we made stuff real simple after that. But we get a bunch of us from AT&T, where I used to work, and we will get together and camp. And we ended up in a pop-up tent. Then eventually we moved to a two-room tent that you could actually stand in and pull your jeans on. So without having to lay on the ground. But and they had some blow-up chairs in there and that, so it was a lot more comfortable. But camping's great. But just like looking at YouTube videos. That's a really good point. I heard that and went, yep, that's a great idea. So with that bit of advice, I'll hand it back to you, Bob. Thanks for doing it. AB6MB.
Well, thank you, Jeff. I agree completely. It's like I was saying too, like Big 5 is a good resource because you don't need to go spend a lot of money right away. And you can actually get Coleman tents there, but they have a lot of name brand stuff now. I have no affiliation with Big 5 or the Papa System, but I just know that they've come a long way. They've come a long way, baby. That was one of the things last night, wasn't it? Oh, that was a post-net trivia. But they've come a long way, especially since we lost Sports Chalet and a few others out there. So now we're left with Dick's. And, there's a few, and there's some of the mom and pop ones too, but there's the big ones. We had Sports Authority, I don't know, all those different ones. All right, thank you so much, Jeff. And the backpacking, I got into that later too, but I think my very first trip was with the Boy Scouts, I think. That makes more sense. Speaking of Boy Scouts, let's say hello to John K6PFN. He's done a bit with them, and does the Boy Scouts on the air. What's that called, Joda? Take it away, John. Go ahead.
Hello, Bob and Annette. Yes, Joda, coming in October. I forget the dates, but you'll be hearing as it approaches when the Scouts get on the air for Jamboree on the air. For advice, I would add a knit hat. Just have a beanie, just because it's going to get colder than you think it will at night, and a headlamp, just because there's things you can't hold a flashlight and put up a tent at the same time. You only have 2 hands. So you don't want to be holding a flashlight with one of them if you have to do something. And just think of that. My first camping was in 7th grade. My parents weren't really into camping, so in 7th grade we went to Beaverbrook in southern New Hampshire, and it was pretty easy. It was the sort of platform Adirondack tents, so we didn't have to set up the tents. We just rolled out our sleeping bags, but it was a blast. I really enjoyed it. I guess that's where I got the bug. Anyway, thanks for the neat topic. Back to you. This is K6PFN.
Well, thank you, John. Yeah, I was like, I did get this from a fellow Papa member that was asking about, what I want to get into camping. What do I need to do? And I thought, well, there's only probably 1 or 2 people out there at the most that haven't been camping, but that's okay. I think it's a fun topic, and it gives us a chance to reminisce about a little bit when we did our first camping trip or thereabouts. If I had my choice, I'd say I was born in the great outdoors probably, but I don't know, that might be a stretch. But I agree with you. And then the other thing I was going to mention to Jeff was, the meal prep. We used to do onions, peppers, kind of like a fajita thing, and then chicken, and chop everything up, put it in plastic bags. And for our first night, all we had to do was fire up the skillet. This was our tent camping days. Fire up the skillet with some oil, put the chicken in there, make sure it gets really cooked, then get the vegetables in there, and then pass out the tortillas. Well, heat those up too. And boy, it's a little hot sauce goes a long way, especially when you're hungry and you are camping. So thank you, John, as always. And we'll look forward to the Scouts. Definitely. I love to have them. Maybe we could work them into a Sunday night somehow and have them come on and say hi, or at least one. That'd be fun. Let's say hello to Hal, N6HAL. What's going on, Hal? And welcome to the net, Chief.
November 6th, Hotel Alpha Lima. Happy Easter, Bob. Thanks for hosting the net. Camping. Well, let me go with a tip. My tip would be to spend a little extra money and get an easy setup tent, because you never know where you're going to be, what the light's going to be like, and how many times you're going to have to set it up. So get one that's easy to set up. Okay, my first trip was in the Boy Scouts, way back in probably 56 or 57. We're going on a local hike to one of the local mountains. Well, it's called Coronado Hills, so it's not really a mountain. But it was in the wintertime, and of course, we took off hiking, and it started raining, so we hiked all the way up the hill in the rain, in the mud, on a dirt road. Not a road, but just two wheel tracks. We were going to a place called the Atterbury Rock House, well known in the community, and it burnt down in the late 40s via a stroke of lightning. Burnt the interior of the house, but the rock structure stood for many, many years after. And we were kind of going to go up and camp in that area. Of course, we had our backpacks as Boy Scouts, and the strange thing I remember about that trip is you had a buddy, and you each carried half of the tent. So when you got up there, you both got together with your buddy, and you set your tent up. And I can't remember exactly how the tops went. We must have overlapped them somehow. And then we cooked our own meals and had a good time, but it did rain on us mostly all the time. But we got real good training on digging trenches around the tent, so we didn't get flooded out. But we had a good time, and ever since then, I've been camping my entire life, just in different various stages, and camping equipment from the tents to sleeping on the ground to 30-foot motorhomes. So I've done it all. But I quit that a couple of years ago when I moved down back here from Nevada. So that's the extent of my first camping trip and my tip. Back to the net, November 6th, Hotel Alpha Lima.
Well, good to hear you tonight, Hal, and happy Easter to you and the family. Hope you had a good day, and it was a beautiful day, another beautiful day here in Southern California. Moving on, what I wanted to say was that, the tent, they have these tents. I don't know how good they are. I looked at them, they always pop up. Oops. No pun was intended. No puns were injured in that. These tents would pop up on YouTube, and, they've got like one button you push or something, the whole thing, and it jumps up, and it's a tent in like 2 seconds. One person can do it. They do have them on Amazon. I've looked them up. So it's a legit company and all that. But anyway, I don't know how good they are. One thing to keep in mind, regardless how good the tent is, even if you get a cheap tent and you say later on, okay, I'm going to do some backpacking, I got to get one that weighs less than 10 pounds, can't be carrying that thing around. And that's fine. But, all the camping gear in my book is like tools. You don't get rid of any of your tools. If you got 10 of the same wrench, well, maybe give a couple away, but, never give tools away, things like that. And don't get rid of your camping equipment, because if we have a major disaster of some type, that's going to come in handy. You might have to just go to a park and pitch your tent, just because you can't stay inside your house or something. God forbid, and we hope we never do, but, it's just sitting there in your garage. So thank you, pal. And let's say hello to Gary, KO6MRX.
Bob, this is KO6MRX Jamie in Huntington Beach on Papa 3. And my first unsupervised camping trip, I grew up in the Seattle area, was when I was about 13 or 14, I think. And I went with two chums up into the Cascades, and it was in April, and it was supposed to be a clear trail. We got dropped off, and we went in, and it wasn't a clear trail. It was full of snow. And we slept on the snow that night. We had a tarp underneath us. We had like a pop tent, so as we would slide out, we didn't knock it over because it was open on the end. And but we did have sufficient food and sufficient water, and we had very good sleeping bags. So I would say get a very good sleeping bag as my tip. And it was it was a fun trip for my first unsupervised camping trip. Even though it was a bit cold, there was no even surface, and we were sliding out all night long. But that's all I have. Thanks for having the net, Bob, and back to control.
Well, thank you, Jamie. My J looks like a G, and I looked at it real quickly, and I said Gary. I don't know why I said Gary, but thank you, Jamie, very, very much. And yeah, definitely sleeping bag. You can't skip on any of them if you think about it. The mattress, your mattress pad or mattress, depending on what there's so many different kinds. There's the just piece of foam, which only lasts so long as far as I'm concerned. It's like a time to upgrade right after that camping trip. And then you get the ones that, and when we originally first started camping again or backpacking with my daughter, I just went out and got pool lounge, blow up toys. What do you call those? Just a big pool lounge that cheap things. And because I was trying to do it all on the cheap. And, but now I've spent over $100 on a nice inflatable camping pad, but it is comfortable. Thank you, Jamie. Jamie. I got it in my head. Lou. W8LOU. Welcome to you.
Well, hey, thanks, Bob. Good to hear you out here, and thanks for doing the net. Always a good one to talk about camping. My first trip camping, I know I've told this story on here before, was with my mom, my sister, and her girlfriend, her best friend, and her daughter in Sequoia. And that was quite a fun trip. That's the one where I told you about the guy taking the picture of the bear with the gum in his mouth, and he's chewing away, and he's snapping a Polaroid camera. This was in the 70s, so yeah, it was a Polaroid. And had that cha-ching, sound where it zoom came out, Yeah. And the bear didn't like that too much and smacked him across the face with his paw. That didn't go well. But yeah, that was our first camping trip. I think I was about 8, 1978. It was a great trip. It was a fun trip. Checked me out. That was a fun trip, but I've talked about it before. Recent, I did a couple of years in a row, I did and I've talked about a little bit on here about my camping at Quartzsite. And I hadn't camped in many years. That was pretty cool. The first year I did it in an RV, and the second year I did it, I just drove out there in my car and pitched my tent, and set up my table, and set up the radios, and threw my solar panels out, and threw my little barbecue out, and away I went. And that was pretty cool. That was a big learning experience. The first year I did it, I learned definitely don't sleep on the ground, and definitely fit test your sleeping bag. Another thing, don't just buy a sleeping bag and show up and expect to fit in it. Make sure you can get in a sleeping bag, and don't be in it at 290 pounds at 6 feet tall. And it's meant for a guy that's like $110, 4'5". That didn't work out well. It was a nice, sort of blanket for me, and I was freezing. Another thing that WA6NVL, Ray Waldemar, hipped me to is the buddy heater. It runs off of a small green propane can, like for the mini barbecues. And that thing lasts about 4 hours, one can, 4 or 5 hours, and it heats your tent up. You can usually heat it up and then turn it off. And the can will last quite a while if you do it like that. It's pretty cool. Buddy heater, $40. It'll save you every time. Walmart, or you can order it on Amazon. Little red buddy heater, very simple to use. And that's about it. All right, well, let me let you go. I've talked too long, and it's always good to have you do the net. 7-3. Hope everybody's had a happy Easter. Hope your day was fun-filled with your family. 7-3. W8LOU.
Well, great to hear you, Lou. I bet Isaac's still at a good age where, he can go hunting everyone likes to hunt for Easter eggs, but, he's still at a pretty young age. So that's got to be a lot of fun, definitely. So, yeah, you got the main thing. I think the thing I took away from the PRC tonight, the Papa Research Center host, is that, try your gear out. Like you said, make sure that sleeping bag, I've had that issue where the sleeping bag didn't fit. And yeah, they do kind of like make bigger sleeping bags these days. I ended up with a big blue kazoo, which is from North Face. They always made a blue kazoo, but they came out with a big blue kazoo, and that fits me just fine. And I've had it for like 30 years. maybe. Yeah, 35 years I've had it. Paid something like $350 for it way back then in the 90s or early 90s, I think I did. Well, sounds good. And yeah, and you know, you've done a lot of camping probably as you went on your motorcycle trips too, I think, cross country, different places and different times. So it's always a lot of fun. And we did have a great motorcycle net that one time. That was really a lot of fun too. Okay, thank you, Lou. Good to hear you, my friend. And you take care. And sounds like everything's going well for you. And hope the best for sure. And enjoy that little one. He's a lot of fun. Let's see if Larry's still out there. K6MAE. Are you still there with us there, Larry? Come on in. Water's fine.
Good evening, Bob. KE6MAE. I was wondering if you even caught me. We need to make a special where we have Echolink check in or something because of the latency on it. Oh, I have a good one for my first one. It was back in 1962, probably, right after we got married. My wife and I, on my first vacation after my first job, I had a week off. I can't remember whether we went to Sequoia or somewhere up 395. But we went somewhere. She was used to camping. She would go camping with her father, who was a deer hunter, up in the Sierras and so forth. So she was used to it a little bit. I had really never been camping whatsoever. I had no clue. It was sort of a strange thing. My folks didn't camp or anything like that. Like they didn't, a hotel was about it. I don't even think they did that much. But here we go. It's my father-in-law's tent, an old canvas tent, and who knows how old it was. When we get in the camping spot, get everything set up, get it staked down, and I'm trying to put the center pole up, and what happens, I rip right through the top. Luckily, I didn't rip it all the way, but there made a lot of holes in the top. We finally got it up, and luckily the weather was right, and it didn't rain or anything like that. But that was my first disastrous experience on camping. And over the years, I got used to it. Later on, I got into four-wheeling, and we'd go places. I've been through the Rubicon twice where you camp out. There was one time out in the desert, I had one of these little pop-up tents down, with, fairly easy to put together. Well, I put it together before I staked it down. Well, there was about a 20-mile-an-hour wind, and I had to chase that tent for about 100 yards before it held up. And back in the beginning, we didn't have YouTube. We didn't have these lessons of how to set up a tent, what all you needed and all that stuff. We just sort of fielded on our own. Thanks for letting me in, Bob. Always good to hear you. Always good to hear this net. Don't do that stuff anymore, but it's always interesting to reminisce. KE6MAE.
Well, you're sounding really good tonight, Larry, and I hope you're doing better. And I know you told us last week you had some surgeries and hips and new things going on, new replacement parts. So hopefully they were OEM and not something that was, aftermarket stuff. But good to hear you as always, too, Larry. I'm glad you finally came over to this side or found us, whatever. I think you've been coming in ever since the Fiesta. We got to see each other at the Fiesta, and that was always fun. Well, you take care and be careful. Don't go chasing them, whoever. Don't go chasing anybody right now. We need to rest a little bit. Let's see what Logan's up to. He did our, not ours, but their DRT net tonight as net control, as always, does a great job. Let's say hello to Logan. Welcome, Logan.
Good evening, Bob, and everybody on the net. This is Logan, Kilo Delta 6, Lima Bravo. And yeah, first camping trips that's a favorite subject of mine because it's pretty funny how much enthusiasm we had for all the really cheap camping gear we had, which was perfect because we couldn't use real camping gear. But so I don't know how old I was. I might have been 5, I guess. I don't even know. Yeah, I have no idea. I mean, we may have been camping long before I remember, but we would show up in a couple of cars. We were car camping, but we had backpacks, and we would walk maybe 25 or 50 feet and set up camp. And we would always race. So we were racing each other. We were racing the grown-ups. We were just trying to perfect our skills, and we thought being able to do things fast was the deal. I remember really cheap waffle stomper boots and I still get a kick out of that. The canteens, we had pocket knives with forks and spoons. I think they're called P38 can openers. I may have that name wrong. And whatever the little pup tents were at the time. And okay, I think I did an ID. This is Logan Kilo Delta 6 Lima Lima Bravo. Yeah, so as far as advice to new campers, it turns out there's an infinite scope to that. There's a lot to learn. And I have taken people camping and many times felt like I ended up being responsible for their well-being, and that's, I don't think, the right way to go. My advice, the standard stuff like practice using the gear. This is a big one. Camp near your car until you really have it dialed in, and then you can maybe go further out, because you're gonna be uncomfortable if you get something wrong. There's been a lot of talk about tents, and I have a few thoughts on that. First off, self-standing tents are great if there's no wind. Maybe they're great, I don't know. But if you drive by Thornhill Broom on a breezy day, you will see self-standing, the self-standing, freestanding, pop-up, whatever they are, just flagging in the wind, and people struggling inside of them. So make sure don't get something that's not up to the weather. And while I'm at it, get real stakes and paracord and all the things you need to keep your tent where it needs to be. The things that come with tents are just vague notions. They're symbolic representations of real tent stakes and the cordage that you would need. And okay, so Larry mentioned a tent blowing away. I have seen $600 North Face tents blow off of mountains in the Sierras, and just watched while this person's actually, it's happened to a friend of mine in one case, and there was something, I don't know what was in there, but there was some expensive gear. It ended our trip. On the way up, I don't know, Bishop or somewhere, he just unstaked his tent and let it go, and it's kind of hard to watch. Another thing Jeff reminded me of, I tried to use a ultralight one-person tent, and I had some tents that I really liked, but what I realized is if you actually need it for protection from the rain or sleet or whatever, you can get inside, but you're not going to get inside in good and dry condition. You're not going to get your gear inside or your boots inside. And if you need to put your boots on or change clothes or do anything, you're getting out in the rain. So that goes back to Jeff said something about getting a tent that had enough room. That was a big thing. But, I mean, there's a lot to learn. I think the main thing is just be prepared to make mistakes and learn and try to be close to your car. And try not to get discouraged, because it actually pays off. KD6LLB, back to net.
Really, really good advice. Definitely go with someone that's experienced. If you got a buddy at work and he says, "You want to go camping this weekend?" I've never been camping before. Well, come on, let's go. I got all the equipment and we'll have some fun. So couldn't ask for better than that, is if you have a friend that even has some equipment that they'll let you borrow. And I agree. There's some tents out there. If you've ever put tent stakes, especially the kind that come with all the new tents, and try to get them to stay in sand, they don't work too well. You got to use those little bags. There's like sand pockets that you can buy, and then hook that up to your tent, fill it with sand. And of course, I didn't know that when I camped with my daughter one time at Thornhill Broom. Luckily, we had enough stuff inside; it didn't blow away. But yeah, the wind comes up fiercely there in the afternoon. I'd rather be in our nice, cozy travel trailer. Thank you, Logan. There's all good advice there. And let me play this.
The Papa System has a great outdoor net archive that can be found on the Papa System website by accessing the homepage and drop down the YouTube tab, with over 85 episodes that you can listen to anytime. These are a non-for-profit podcast for the pure love and joy of the great outdoors and amateur radio.
That's exactly what it is. And it's over 90 now. So I don't know where all those came from. Thank you, Logan. And this is W6CJX for the Papa System, a great outdoor net. And now we're heading over to Steve, who's got a little bit of experience out there. He's got some tips. And do you remember one of your first camping trips? WA6FGW.
Well, good evening to Bob and the net. WA6 Foxtrot Gulf Whiskey. I do. In fact, I can vividly remember it quite distinctly now, which I'm surprised. It's been that many. Again, similar to someone else who was on earlier, probably junior high in grade school. Maybe grade 6, grade 7, something like that. And I joined the local Boy Scout troop that was nearest, and now that I think about it, I don't think they gave us very much advice, and it's certainly, in hindsight. But we ended up using shelter halves, which is what the other gentleman was thinking, I believe, and they snapped together across the top ridge, and there was no floor. You were basically in the front and the back end. They were not necessarily open per se, but there wasn't a lot of protection from rain and snow and all the other fun stuff. So that was one. And sleeping bags, I remember borrowing from my mom a couple, 3, just good old ordinary. I'm trying to think what I'm talking about. Something you put on your bed to cover you over. And it was obviously by the 2 days later when we were heading home, everything was soaking wet, just totally soaking. So it is what it is. And then we had sterno stoves for cooking and all that stuff. That's the fuel in a can or whatever. Anyway, it seems like everything in the handbook of the Boy Scouts was kind of backwards from what thinking is now. It used to be that you did trenches around, to keep the water from coming in your tent, and that's all fine as long as you're willing to put it all back when you're done and all that good stuff. Nothing in the way of heaters unless you want to fire up the old sterno. And by the way, talking about equipment, you got to start with someone that knows a lot about things. There are backpacking clubs that do a pretty nice job, I think, of showing you what they're right and wrong and that sort of thing. And there's the Backpacker magazine. I can highly recommend. Got a lot of great information from that magazine over the years. Used to get it quite regularly, but I don't do much in the way of real backpacking anymore, so it's kind of a waste of my money here. But that was one way to go. Anyway, after that, the next time I went camping and used the same equipment, of course, it was, with the exception of the sleeping bag. It was a good sleeping bag, but it was definitely tough to move around inside, and that was when I joined the U.S. Army. So they don't worry about weight and stuff. By the way, you'll find if you, I think it's the December issue of Backpacker magazine, they have a variety of things like stoves and sleeping bags and tents and whatnot. They have them all, a lot of them rated, and give you some good information. What to keep in mind when you're selecting equipment. And a good tent is definitely worth its weight, not only in saving you weight, but when you stake it down with some heavy-duty tent stakes, like Logan was suggesting, it'll stay in one piece rather than flying around. Which we have had. We've had a sleeping bag fly up to the rim of the Green River Canyon, and we saw another hiker with his untethered tent flying up into, I'm trying to think where this was. It was in Sequoia someplace. But it was fun, and watching them recover all this fun stuff. That's all I got that I can think of. Back to you, WA6FGW.
Well, that's great, Steve. Yeah, like Logan was saying about the tent stakes, and once you pound those suckers in, and they got to be pretty beefy. We've experienced that out on the island too, where there's just rocks everywhere, and you knock it in a little bit, and then all of a sudden it just stops, and you can't go any further. You have to pull it out. But sometimes when you get those darn things in there, and even the beefy ones, you can't get them out. You're just sitting there going, "Wow!" So I learned, but to use like my Leatherman. I'm a leather. I just want to say, no capes. I use my Leatherman to like the needle nose part that has the grip for like a regular pliers. It's a little further down on the needle nose pliers, and just twist it back and forth, and it comes right out. Someone showed me that one time. I went, "Oh, so don't just pull on the thing until you pass out. Just twist it." And it actually works quite well. Thank you, Steve. As always got some good information. Let's say hello to Ron, KF4 PQH. I got his call sign down now.
Good evening, Bob and Ed. KF4 PQH in Locust Grove, Virginia, coming in over All-Star. Boy camping, went back to Boy Scout and worked the way along, did some family camping, and I remember I camped with a family quite a few times. A good friend of mine, his family used to go out on a lot of the holiday weekends, and they had one of these 9x12 wall tents made out of canvas, probably weighed about 100 pounds, and we'd set it up in a lot of the campsites we went to, had platforms and places like that, and did a lot of that kind of camping. And of course, I spent, people would call it camping in the motorhome. I call it living on the road, living life on the road for 10 years recently. But one of the biggest things I could suggest is something to take a look at is a screen room or a screened-in canopy kind of thing. That's always great. Let me break. Yeah, if you're in a place that's got a lot of flying insects and stuff, especially here out in the East Coast, we get in those skeeters a lot. You don't get as many skeeters out there in California. But the screened-in room comes in good for that. And one of the best lots, I learned a lot of them as a Boy Scout, for camping is something called a taut line hitch. And I see people when they have to put guy lines on a canopy or guy lines on a tent or something, that they wrap things and twist things and do different things. Google taut line hitch. Learn how to tie a taut line hitch. Man, that makes it real easy to loosen or tighten your guy lines, however you need to do that. Other than that, I think most of my camping days are pretty well done now. I'll just watch that kind of stuff on TV, but did enjoy a lot of it during the day. Everybody stay safe, do something good for somebody, and 7-3, we'll see you on the radio. KF4PQH, back to Net Control.
Well, Ron, that we can just keep on living camping as we do a lot of different aspects for the Outdoor Net, which is really cool because we did this, we did that, but we can talk about it and reminisce a little bit. And so I think that makes people happy and makes me happy. If we have someone to talk with, someone to check in on the net. I was just thinking it was going to be a dead net tonight, but so far we're up to almost 17 here, and I am happy about it. Well, thank you so much, Ron, and you and Dee have a great one. I think you guys had a nice Easter. I saw some wonderful Facebook posts that I enjoyed, and for the holiday. Let's say hello to Ellen, K6 Delta Victor. How is it going, Ellen, out there in the land of sheep? We love it.
The land of sheep is doing just fine, Bob. What a great net. My goodness. I have so much going on right now in my world, I have to organize my head. My earliest memory of camping was when I was about 8 years old, and it was a scouting weekend trip. My mother was one of the chaperones, and a whole bunch of little girls, 8 years old, and the chaperones headed out to a campground on a lake. The weather was cloudy. It was threatening rain. It started to drizzle. And I loved it. I wanted nothing more than to read a book and listen to the rain and be surrounded by the weather. It wasn't cold. It was the summertime. And the mothers decided that their little girls couldn't be out in the weather all weekend, so they took us home. And my fierce desire to do what I wanted to do versus what everybody else wanted to do was cemented in that weekend. And I'm still camping, and I'm 77, so I guess it worked. And as far as advice for campers, I got 2 points. Number one, make sure a sleeping bag fits you, and don't even use a sleeping bag because that's an oxymoron. I camp with a 4-inch air mattress, a towel that serves double purpose as a cloth between that mattress and my covers, and a twin sheet sewed up the side so it makes a sack, so it's big enough because I'm a side sleeper. I want to bend that knee, and then I have a comforter that I stuff into a stuff sack, so it goes down very small, and that way it's like sleeping in a real bed, which is a far cry from any sleeping bag you have on the market, because side sleepers don't like sleeping bags. Anyway, that was my first point. The second point, and probably the most important one, and nobody's even touched on it, is if you're going to go camping, go with strong, funny people, because you're going to create memories that are going to last you a lifetime. Camping alone has its own appeal, and I prefer that mostly, but I have camped with people I have thoroughly enjoyed and made some of the richest memories that I could ever hope to have. So with that, and I'm going to be camping this summer too, so it's not over yet. And I did put up a couple of videos, a link over on the page for preparations for motorcycle camping, because I did those videos a few years ago. And if you ever want a motorcycle camp, it's kind of what I do. Anyway, there you go. All in, all done. K6DV, back to you, Bob.
Well, you got a point there. If you're a side sleeper or a front sleeper, stomach sleeper, I guess, I don't know. I'm kind of mostly a side sleeper too, and basically you do have to kind of learn that rotisserie. Even if the bag fits you, which mine does, you still have to kind of do that rotisserie rollover where you don't really roll over because you'd go with the whole bag and everything. You kind of roll with inside the bag. Like with Jim Gafferty or one of those comedians that was so funny talking about camping. If you can ever find the deal he did, that show or whatever it was on in the skit or whatever you want to call those on camping, he was just hysterical about, bears coming along and going, oh, look for the bare necessities, the simple bare necessities. There's a human burrito, and all that kind of stuff. So it was pretty funny. So, yep, absolutely. Well, we'll have to get you on and talk about some motorcycle camping too. We did one, or I think that was Bill that did that one. That was a good one. I went back and listened to it again. Thank you, Ellen, as always, and enjoy your pictures, as you're told many times by everybody. It's just so refreshing to see, the hillsides, and the hills are alive with sheep. N6, Papa, Chris, welcome. How are you tonight? Where are you coming in from?
Thank you. I'm doing well, thank you. I'm coming in from Maryland, and I grew up doing a ton of camping. My parents loved it. We actually were part of a camping, group. I'm from Connecticut. I've moved down to Maryland to go to a certain hospital. But my one thing I would recommend, camping in my book always should include s'mores. But I would recommend making sure to get s'more sticks with the handles, not just the metal ones. I made that mistake as a young kid. I grabbed one because I wanted to make one. Turns out it had been sitting next to the fire and burned my hand very, very badly. So, Control, thanks for having me.
Okay, Chris. Yeah, you cut out a little bit there at the end, but we got everything. I mean, right at the very end, so we got everything. And definitely, s'mores and maybe some popcorn. If you got one of those, with a long handle on it. But that's good advice. I have something, I think I found it at a campsite, literally. It's like got the 4 prongs on it, kind of looks like a little miniature pitchfork, and it does not have a handle. You would have to really be careful because someone left it in the fire, it would heat up, and then you wouldn't realize it. But it's pretty neat. And then we used to take sticks, and we would take leftover styrofoam cups that were being thrown away, and you just melt those on a stick. As a kid, it just to have your own torch, it was just priceless. But I think so, yeah, definitely have some Jiffy Pop or something on hand, and I found out, I haven't tried it yet, or did I? I don't remember, but you can make popcorn in a jet boil. I can't remember if I tried it or not. I'm going to do that before we go to the island this year, because I think that would be fun to make popcorn. It might take quite a few batches to get everybody a handful of popcorn. All right, Chris, will you take care? Thanks for coming all the way in from Maryland. Love it. That's good. Keep up. Be here, and we'd love to hear from you always. Well, thank you, Jeff, for waiting. We got two more. We got Cody and Jeff. KO6LQJ. Thank you, Jeff, for being there, and welcome.
Hey, Bob. Yeah, thank you for doing the net tonight, and great to hear everybody. And just want to mention my first camping experience. I was probably 5 or 6 years old, something like that, and I tended to wander quite a bit and just explore. And so my parents were a little uneasy about that. I'm sure it's why they told me that, those bats that were flying around at night, you got to be careful and not wander too far from camp and protect your neck because, bats, and vampires. So, but just a few years later, after that, I think I was 9 or so, my dad took me backpacking up to Mount San Jacinto, and we did the summit, and I just thought that was so cool. Kind of gave me a whole love for backpacking after that, and did a lot of backpacking in the years to follow with the scouts and friends, and now my kids are in the scouts, and my oldest he's going to be 21, so he's out, but the youngest he's still going through the scout program, and going to go up to Northern Tier this summer and do a canoe trip up in the Great Lakes. So he's going to have a blast. Anyway, back to net, and thank you again, KO6LQJ.
Well, that's going to be great for him. That definitely, those are the kind of trips you'd never forget, and you learn a lot of life lessons on those kind of things. I know I did as growing up. And funny you mentioned San Jacinto. I grew up there, and we lived on Fern Valley Way, which is on your way up to like Humber Park, where you get onto the main trail like Devil's Slide. So I think my very first backpacking experience was in 7th grade, and that was with the whole class pretty much that wanted to go. And I remember my poor friend Clark. Let's see, what was his? The first name was Clark. Forgot what his last name was now. Kind of like, wasn't Kent? No. But he had asthma, and so I had someone to be with because I was overweight and as a child anyway, and so I was kind of the last person on the team. But he needed like someone to be with him and help him get his inhaler out of his backpack or whatever. So I don't mean to laugh because I have a little asthma myself now, but I just thought that was a good memory of Clark. What was his last name? It was so easy. It was like something with a C, too. I made it perfect. All right, thank you, Jeff. And let's say hello to, I think it's Cody. We'll see. KO6, November, Charlie, Lima.
Hey, everyone, and hey to the net. I just wanted to pop in and say hello. Yes, my first experience actually camping or anything like that would be out at my grandfather's ranch in Lake Elsinore off of Nichols Road. I went out there one night, and it was a little scary, and I can remember trying to look out for snakes and things like that. But I recently got a ranch in Golden Valley, so I'll be looking forward to hearing more on this outdoor net. Kilo Oscar 6, November Charlie Lima, Cody.
Well, looky there. How about that? I got your name right after all. I thought it was Cody. Very good, Cody. Yeah, we did a lot of down in that area. We used to go to Rancho, California, and they called it Butterfield Country, which is down by Temecula. So once I kind of once I found the love of motorcycles, I should say, especially dirt bikes, we went just about any chance we got. Not every weekend, but pretty much. And then any holiday, like Easter, we would have been gone that weekend. And of course, all the others down there to go camping. We had a trailer, a little Shasta tow behind. And then we had the bikes that we put in the van. And it was that was my life for quite a few years. I breathed 2-cycle oil. Blinzol, that was my favorite. If you have a favorite 2-cycle oil. That would be it. That or maybe Toro. I'm not sure. W6CJX for the Papa System. Great outdoor net. Great net tonight. I mean, from this side of the microphone anyway. I think we had a good one. Let's throw out one last call real quick, and we'll see if we have anybody that we didn't pick up in that first or second or 15th round. It was just one round. And please come now.
Kilo Juliet 6 Golf Echo Uniform. Bob, I'll be in and out this time, Bob.
Foxtrot Golf Whiskey, recheck.
Lima Mike, calling.
KC6 WTN doubled.
KU7 PAU, just stopping in to say hi. Listen to the net tonight. I'll be back on next week.
All right. We did have a few. That's great. I was wondering where Bob was. I heard him earlier, I think. So he might have got tied up with something there, the GEU. But I got you down as you can make up for it next week, an IO. And I picked up Steve, Colin, Jeff, and I didn't get a name, but at the K7 station. So let's go. Steve's a recheck. So let's go to Colin first. Yeah, let's go to Colin first. And then we'll take Steve out there as a recheck. Or no, we'll go to Jeff. I'll work it out while you guys talk. Over to you, Colin.
Hey, guys. It's been great to hear everybody's stories. It's everybody's different perspective on something we all know and love. My first camping was when I was a Cub Scout in Switzerland. We went to a place called Seix-Fera-Cheval. It's a place in France, just outside of Switzerland, near Geneva, that was just breathtaking. Waterfalls coming off of vertical rock faces, forests, little brook on the green. It was breathtaking. So it cemented camping for me. I almost rate every camping trip based on that camping trip because it was awesome. But I'm going to echo what other people have said. First, know the weather. Know what's happening where you're going. Practice with your gear, and then sleeping. Be comfortable. Put some foam or something insulates you from the cold of the what's underneath you. They make some really neat inflatable mattresses that have foam in them now that you can puff a little air into, and it's almost like being at home. But one thing I've noticed, if you're in cold weather, besides having a hat on, filling up a water bottle with hot water and throwing it in a Ziploc and throwing that in the bottom of your bag in a T-shirt will warm up even the coldest night. It's just a really great thing. It's to the point I've even purchased a hot water bottle that has a little sweater on it, and I take that with me on cold campouts. Just in case I'm a little too cold, I can boil some water, throw that sucker in my bag, because that heat can't escape. So it's literally gives you like 10, 15 degrees of sleeping bag. But having a really nice bag is important. You can always open up a 0-degree bag and turn it into a 30-degree bag by just, venting it. But you can never get more than you need in the middle of the night when you're freezing. And then don't wear cotton. They say cotton kills. It's basically synthetics are the way to go. But the Sierra Club has Wilderness Basics course, and if anybody wants to get into the outdoors and knows nothing, they can go from 0 to 100 in 3 weeks. No, I'm sorry, 6 weeks. Anyway, they take you on campouts. They take you and teach you in classes everything from first aid to food prep to gear to tents to physical fitness, everything. It's a really, really, really great class, and I think all of the Sierra Club chapters in all the areas have it. San Diego has a southern chapter and a northern chapter. I've done the northern chapter one a bunch of times, but that's my advice: is just get out there, learn the right way, and then make yourself comfortable. Because when you dial your gear, and I've said this before, anywhere you want to go is paradise. It's just a wonderful, wonderful thing to do. So that's it for me. Back to net. This is Kilo Oscar 6, India Lima Mike, Colin.
Well said, my friend. Definitely. You have a great way of speaking, too. I really like you and Sam. I picked out my two favorite. I like to hear people. Well spoken. Definitely a good point, and I do that with my North Face down bag. It's a 32 degree or maybe more. I mean, it's a good down bag, definitely. And many nights you just stick a leg out more than anything, and then when it gets really kind of chilly or something, I can reach down and pull on that zipper and bring it up and get it nice and warm in there. So yeah, you can always go. You can go cooler, but you can't get warmer But the hot water bottle sounds like a really great idea. I've heard of that before, and I just never did it or never thought to do it. But I might take that into consideration, especially if you're camping in the winter. Yeah, that sounds great. Thank you, Colin, as always. And let's take Jeff. I know he's out of pocket, and he's on his Clearno, which I think is awesome. Got a great signal now, Jeff. Let's say hello to KC6WTN.
Hey, thanks, Bob, and thanks for doing the net. Yes, thank you for the prodding, too. I finally got the All-Star node working with Clearnode. Yeah, I'm up here in Northern California right now visiting family, so I apologize for missing most of the net tonight, but I picked up the tail end. So my earliest camping, I was probably 6 or 7. The family would drive up into the Sierra Nevadas, and we used to go to this place called Silver Lake that was in the Sierras. Tons of huge granite boulders to climb around on and hike around. Dad would load up the station wagon with the trailer connected to it, and we'd spend a week out there in the woods, in the redwoods and other pine trees, having fun. Back to Net Control, KC6WTN.
Yeah, you sounded good there, Jeff. You'd never know. You might just be there in Simi Valley and coming in from all the way up north. I always forget that you're from Northern California. I spent my teenage years, I guess, up there after I lived in Idlewild, and we went to a lot of lakes, of course, all the way up to Lake Tahoe and all those. And I think the one place that I remember going as kind of a kid, so we must have driven way up there, is a place called Eagle Lakes, or Eagle Lake, and I think it's up by Susanville, so it's kind of a ways up there. But it was a fun place. It was really nice. I remember we borrowed, I think, a canvas tent back in those days. That's how long ago it was. It was a canvas tent, and it smelled, it has that weird smell to it after it's, not just because it's been packed away for a few years, but we might even rented it. I think we rented a tent. That's so that was one of my favorite camping trips with my parents, like, let's say. And then my worst camping trip was also with my parents, and that was when we went to Lake Havasu at Thanksgiving. And it was so windy that we couldn't even sit outside. We had to go in the tent, and it was just like, being on Everest or something, because the wind was howling so loud and blah. Anyway, all right. I digress. Let's say thank you so much, Jeff, for being there and coming in and sharing with us. Let's say hello to Steve as a recheck, and then we'll close the net. WA6FG and a W. Go back.
Okay, very good there, Bob. I'll try to keep this real short. Just reply to a couple of comments that might be of assistance to somebody. On the tent stakes, a good, inexpensive, although a little on the heavy side, are the ones that you can pick up at like Home Depot. I think they use them to, stake down railroad ties or something. They're about 10, 11 inches long and about half-inch wide. And if you're worried about the rope slipping off the top knob, you might put a big washer or something in there. But those seem to never bend. You can whack at them all you want with a nice sledge and get it to go in most of the time. Everybody's going to have their own techniques, that's for sure. And talking about down and whatnot, I'm told that they have water repellent down, or at least it's been treated to minimize absorption. So if weight is everything, which it is for a lot of us, that might be an option to look for that in one of the better quality sleeping bags. And we're speaking about that. There's one sleeping bag that I've personally landed on as far as if I ever do any real backpacking again. I still have mine. It's some manufacturer called Montbell, and their claim to fame is that they use an elastic type of stitching when they sew it all together, so that when you're laying on your side or whatever, and you throw a knee out, it takes it up and it follows you where you went, and then as soon as you retract it, because maybe you did get a little on the cool side, it just conforms back to your normal body mummy position. So they're not cheap. The one I have is, I think it was like $320 or something like that. But at the time, weight was everything. If I can cut a pound here and a pound there and a pound here, and gee, that means I can carry more ham radio stuff. Anyway, other than that, that's all we got. But a great topic. I wouldn't have thought it would generate so many great thoughts and after effects from many, many years of camping and hiking. WA6FGW Claire, thanks, Bob. Go ahead.
Well, I've threatened a few times to rename the net the memory net but then I thought maybe that would be like we don't have a memory, but we have good memories. I know it's triggered Logan and you and quite a few people with great memories out there and of what they did and when they were a kid and all that good stuff. So it does to me too. That's why I end up talking halfway through the darn net, because everything you guys say triggers something that I remember, and it just comes out, Thank you, Steve. Yeah, Montbell, I was going to say Montbell. I kid you not, I have it written right here on my notes. I take notes on the left side and check-ins on the right. I wrote Montbell because I was trying to remember what was the name of those that stretch, and I used to see those advertised in Backpacker all the time, or when they first came out, and they literally, they just stretch with you. So I think that's pretty neat, pretty cool, as they say. Anyway, I want to thank everyone for being out there and coming in with, all these great reminiscing stories and checking in with your first time camping and some good tips, very good tips out there. That's why I wrote them all down. Kind of like to go through them and look at them myself. And don't forget, we do have the archive there. It'll be up tomorrow afternoon if you want to go back, or tell your family and friends that you're on the radio, or ones that say, what do you do with those radios, or what do those people do? You can send them a link to the YouTube page off of Papa System website, or anywhere that you get your podcast. You can put in the Great Outdoor Net. It should pop up. And with that, I want to thank the Papa System, especially for allowing us to have all the nets that we do. And, of course, Cecil with his legendary leadership and all the tech team that keeps everything going. They were up there on the mountain, I think, over the weekend doing some work. So thank you to them. And, of course, thanks to all the net controllers out there, too, that devote and dedicate their time voluntarily to, well, at gunpoint sometimes, but mostly voluntarily to do the nets for us. And with that, I'm going to close the net at 21:31. It's been a while since we've gone this long, but that is a good thing. And I've got a very full page sitting in front of me, so I will take that as a good net. And everyone have a great week ahead. We started here on Sunday evening, so it can't be too bad. It's not really Monday. It's the day after Sunday. So 7-3, and I'll return the net and the frequencies and the system back to normal amateur use.